The United Auto Workers Union, also known as the UAW, is still on strike. Now, the UAW has had strikes before, but this is the first time ever in history for the union to walk off the job at all three of Detroit's biggest automakers at the same time. Today, we're looking at why the union is striking, what they want, and how the big three are responding. We'll also see how the strike will impact consumers and the car industry in America. The United Auto Workers Union claims to have more than 400,000 active members. They build the cars that many Americans drive. This past September 15th, almost 1 out of 10 of American unionized auto workers went on strike. The goal is to move the three biggest automakers, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler's owner Stellantis, to increase workers' wages, amongst other things. Now, mind you, these are three of the largest U.S. car makers, and they make some 40% of the cars that Americans buy. When the strike first kicked off, it was limited to 3 assembly plants: a GM factory in Wentzville, Missouri, a Ford plant in Wayne, Michigan, near Detroit, and a Jeep plant run by Stellantis in Toledo, Ohio. The union is seeking across-the-board wage increases of 36% over 4 years. So the big three made a counteroffer, but it was way less than what the union asked for. GM and Ford proposed 20%, and Stellantis put forward just 17.5%. From the beginning, Union President Shawn Fain was clear that if the automakers couldn't come up with better offers, workers could end up going at strike at more plants than these three. Right now, top-scale assembly plant workers make about $32 an hour plus annual profit-sharing checks. According to Ford, last year the average annual pay, including overtime and bonuses, was $78,000. The Ford plant that originally went on strike was around 3,300 workers. The Toledo Jeep complex had about 5,800 workers, and GM's Wentzville plant has about 3,600 workers. Initially, the union decided not to go after the biggest cash cows, and by that I mean full-size pickup trucks and big SUVs. But come mid-October, some 8,700 workers walked off the job from the Ford Kentucky truck plant, which is one of the largest and most profitable of Ford's plants. Right off the bat, Biden dispatched 2 of his top aides to Detroit to help resolve the strike. Speaking at the White House, Biden said no one wants to strike. But despite that, he still respected the workers' right to use their options under the collective bargaining system. He appears sympathetic to the union and agreed that the big three should go further with their counteroffer. Biden is backing the union's efforts. He says the contracts can set standards across the wider economy and ultimately benefit all Americans. Keep in mind that we're approaching the 2024 presidential election, which is a year away. Biden positioned himself to be with the people and for the people. The White House has said its policies will support blue-collar workers, strengthen the middle class, and create factory jobs. It plans to do this by shifting away from fossil fuels and address climate change. But despite that, funny enough, the UAW is the most prominent union to not endorse Biden's re-election. Now, this strike is different than the previous strikes in more ways than one. For starters, Union President Shawn Fain is the first leader in the union's history to be elected directly by the workers. You see, in the past, the outgoing leader basically picked his own successor. But as you can imagine, that system was riddled with flaws. Pretty much, bribery and embezzlement. In fact, the culture of bribery and embezzlement in the union was so strong that it even ended with a federal investigation and prison time for 2 former UAW presidents. This is really serious stuff we're talking about. But last spring, Shawn Fain narrowly won his post after a fiery campaign that condemned the union's corrupt culture, which he called company/unionism. He said the corrupt culture sold out workers by allowing plant closures and failing to extract more money from the automakers. In his words, it has been a one-party state for longer than he'd been alive. Seeing that Fain is so different from his predecessors, many have been expecting a huge change after he got elected. Funny enough, Shawn Fain acknowledges himself the union demands are too high. But he also says that the big three are raking in billions and they can afford these demands. But the big three claim that costly settlements will force them to increase the price of cars. Now, Fain says that's not true because labor accounts for only 4 to 5% total vehicle costs. Now, wage increase isn't the only thing the union's seeking. Union negotiators are also seeking restoration of cost of living pay raises, an end of different tiers of wages for factory jobs, a 32-hour work week with 40 hours of pay, the restoration of traditional defined benefit pensions for new hires who currently receive only 401k-style retirement plans, pension increases for retirees, and more. Back in 2007, workers gave up cost of living raises and predefined benefit pensions for new hires. That's when wage tiers were created to prevent any serious financial issues before and during the Great Recession. Yet, despite this, only Ford avoided bankruptcy protection. Now, 16 years later, the union wants to get the concessions back. The Great Recession is over, and these companies are more profitable than ever. Within a month of the strike, 4,835 workers lost their jobs. Soon after, the Big Three laid off an additional 800 factory workers. 570 of these workers were laid off by Stellantis, almost 200 by GM, and 70 by Ford. The reason for these layoffs was because these 800 workers worked at plants that would otherwise normally supply engines and transmissions to the plants that got shut down due to the strike. Even if Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors were to reach an agreement with UAW, none of the companies so far have indicated any plans to rehire all workers. And now the layoffs are also trickling down to the suppliers. For example, Sodasea Automotive, a Detroit-based supplier, laid off 62% of its workforce due to work stoppage. Interestingly, in mid-October, GM and Canadian union Unifor reached a tentative agreement after 4,300 workers went on strike at 3 GM facilities. The agreement also apparently included wage increase to 25%. But here's the thing about tentative agreements. Even if there's a tentative agreement and there's voting, the strike remains until an agreement is finally made permanent. A lot of it comes down to when strike pay comes in. Union workers stay on strike until the contracts are officially authorized. And because many workers live paycheck to paycheck, that's an important detail. You see, in its previous 88-year history, UAW has always negotiated with one automaker at a time. By doing this, the industry-wide impact of any possible work stoppage was limited. Each time a deal was made with an automaker, it was viewed as more of a template for subsequent contract negotiations, not a guarantee. But times have changed. Thousands of workers at the big three car companies are on strike, and the union's $825 million strike fund can only last so long. The longer the strike goes on, the more strained the fund becomes. If the contract negotiations continue to drag on, the strike could start to expand and affect more plants. If this happens, the cost will only grow both for the workers and the companies. Next, you'll see car dealers running short of vehicles to put in their showrooms. And we all know that limited stock means higher prices. At the end of the day, someone has to pay the price. A lot of it will go to the consumer. Since April 2021, new car prices have jumped almost 20%. Higher interest rates have made auto loans more expensive too. Now, with the strike, it'll make matters even worse. One study estimates that a total strike by unionized workers at the Big Three may cause motor vehicle production to drop at least 30%, if not more. We may also start to see more car dealers pushing us to buy from foreign automakers with non-unionized workers. A prolonged UAW strike may also reintroduce further stress to an economy that's only starting to benefit from easing inflation. This strike can also change the car industry as a whole, specifically when it comes to EV production. Here's the thing. Right now, we're seeing a historic shift in the industry away from internal combustion engine vehicles towards electric cars instead, at least on the production end. This is also one of the looming issues addressed in the strike. The union wants to make sure it represents workers at joint venture EV battery factory. Otherwise, they may be soon out of a job. With EV production at an all-time high and only getting higher, automakers are saying they're facing massive demands to keep up with EV production, while also developing and building gas-powered cars too. This has caused automakers to worry that labor costs will rise so much they'll have to price their cars higher than those sold by foreign automakers with U.S. factories. These EV battery plants are going to be the make or break issue. Long story short, if or when EVs completely replace gas-powered vehicles, most UAW workers at engine and transmission plants will lose their jobs. And if lower-paying battery plants aren't unionized, then all these workers are suddenly out of a job and won't have anywhere to get the same wages and benefits that they previously had. If the EV battery plant wasn't organized, whatever union wins on wages could only be temporary. That's because the union's membership would decline if EV battery factories are not unionized. If you're wondering why many factory workers will lose their jobs if we make the switch over to EVs, well, that's a good question. The answer is pretty simple. EVs have fewer moving parts. Because of this, it's been estimated that EVs require 30 to 40% fewer workers to assemble compared to gasoline vehicles. And even if the workers do stick around to assemble EVs, Ford and Stellantis don't want to pay top union wages. The reason is because of fears it'll push up their costs even higher than major competitors like Tesla, who uses non-union labor. This in turn would make Detroit's EVs less competitive since they'll be more expensive and harder to sell. The ripple effect would also impact other factories, not just the workers, because many factories rely on each other for parts. So even if one factory plant remained shut down for a long period of time, countless other factories would feel the effects too. Say the strike shuts down multiple factories that produce replacement parts. That could drive up the cost of car repairs and affect the supply of new cars too. That would then affect car insurance costs. Higher used car prices means more expensive claims. And that means that the insurers would be obligated to pay their fair market value of a car if it's marked up as destroyed. destroyed. It also means bad news for any cars that are ready at the repair shop. According to some estimates, the strike could mean that some cars that need repairs may be stuck at the shop for 2 or 3 months due to part shortages. True, some dealers or shops may have previously stockpiled car parts, but even that can only last for so long. If you're wondering how the strike is affecting consumers right now, well, one survey found that only 71% of Americans are even aware of the strike. 15% of Americans say the strike is now making them consider a Detroit brand, but 8% say they no longer are. 14% of Americans are holding off buying a vehicle until the strike gets resolved, and 11% say that the strike is actually expediting their plans to buy a car. But now you tell me, how do you foresee this to impact consumers and the car industry as a whole? Please share by commenting below. If you like today's video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for your support.